Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this video that is brought to you by, well, you. All the support we've received from you guys, whether it be channel members or patrons or anything such like that, has kept the dastardly sponsors at bay. If you'd like to help in this endeavor, there are links in the description down below, but the easiest and quickest way would be to like, subscribe, and share, like it's the plague. Anyways, on to the story. Human devastation is another level of terrifying. Written by that 2009 weird emo kid. Devastation is a concept that is hard to grasp without first-hand experience. Rookies usually have a dramatic idea of it when they join our order. They imagine maniacal wizards unleashing fireballs or a rampaging monster attacking a city. And, well, these things do happen. Focusing on them offers an incomplete picture of the dangers we face. You see, in reality, obvious threats like those are the easiest to neutralize due to how simple they are to solve. Stopping a monster isn't complicated. You just kill the thing and then get tea afterwards. Stopping a human-made famine, on the other hand, will leave you pulling your hair out and wishing it was a mere monster. This is something I learned yet again during my first journey with Arthox, my human mentor. We were nearing the southwestern end of the farthest valley, still following the river with the goal of eventually reaching the coastal highway. Unfortunately, late spring in this region is a time of frequent flash floods, making the riverside unpredictably deadly. Our only option at the time was to take shelter in a small human village while the weather cleared up. As inquisitors, we were a rare sight for the locals, and thus we were given a warm reception at their only inn. It wasn't out of kindness of their hearts, though. They expected us to help around the village during our stay, which I thought was fair. Arthox, of course, ignored all of the social cues. He simply got drunk and slept all week through the storms, leaving me solely responsible to deal with the villagers. I didn't mind at first, thinking there would just be light-hearted errands, but I was soon shocked to learn that their crops were rotting due to a wizard's curse. This took me by surprise because magic of that magnitude would require an absurd amount of mana. Very few wizards, if any, were capable of this feat. It all started because of a new irrigation system that had been recently made by the humans. In the past, this village had relied on a nearby elf wizard to manage their water during a dry season. His process was reliable, yet inefficient, since he could only service a farm one day at a time. The new irrigation system, however, had completely made the wizards obsolete. It was a series of strategically placed dams and channels that could reach every farm at once, more than doubling the village's output in a matter of months. Everyone saw it as a miracle until the spring floods began, when the crops started wilting. Nothing had changed in their farming techniques, and they weren't novices, so it wasn't a simple mistake like overwatering or bad soil nutrition. This all pointed towards a wizard as a main culprit, but nobody dared confronting him out of fear of making it worse. Needless to say, I was furious about this. It was an abuse of magic that disgusted me to my very core. After learning about it, I immediately marched to the wizard's tower, ready to fight the psychopath and bring him to justice. What I found, though, left me completely stumped. The wizard was an old elf who fainted at a mere suggestion of violence. I even had to drag his unconscious body over to a couch and wait for him to wake up, which left me wondering how someone so squeamish could unleash a famine. Soon enough, the wizard explained that he hadn't done anything to the village, saying, "They did it to themselves." I narrowed my eyes. How convenient. "It's the truth," said the wizard, exasperated. "Then what's causing it?" "Monster blood," replied the wizard. "Or ichor, if you prefer the technical term. You see, the spring floods tend to wipe out every monster nest in their path, filling the river with blood. Normally, this is circumvented by filtering it out with enchanted plants, but growing them takes time and constant upkeep. And you couldn't warn them about this." "Why should I?" The wizard looked away, despondent. "They discarded me," he frowned. "And then they had the gall to blame me. Screw that. Let them reap what they sowed." I didn't know how to respond. The wizard had been clearly wounded by them, but he didn't seem willing to admit it. In the end, I left the tower, unable to win him over. To my surprise, the villagers didn't appear to be angry at him. In fact, the leader of the irrigation system felt ashamed of the whole situation. The reason he started his project in the first place was because he wanted to make the wizard's life easier, adding, "This village was founded by an adventuring party that he belonged to. He always kept an eye on us, but He never really spent any time here unless it was absolutely necessary, so I didn't think he actually enjoyed it." Everyone agreed with a crestfallen nod. I thought this meant that they were giving up, but it seemed that they were aware of what they had to do now. The next day, a huge mob of villagers headed over to the wizard's tower. It looked like they were going to lynch him. Instead, they all apologized. The wizard then stepped out of his tower and summoned a small tornado, blowing them all away. He didn't even bother hearing them out. On the second day, the villagers sent out their children, thinking they could win him over with their innocence. The wizard actually listened to their pleas, then unleashed a pack of spectral dogs that chased them away. I was stunned by his callousness. The villagers kept trying every day, but lost faith as the week continued. One by one, they stopped showing up to the tower, as they all got rebuffed in increasingly weird and magical ways. Eventually, the only one left was the irrigation leader. He broke down crying at the steps of the tower, pleading with all his heart for the future of his community. I couldn't hold back my own tears after hearing his words. Even the coldest heart would melt at his vulnerability. Or so I thought. The wizard simply turned him into a goat and went back inside. At that point, all hope was lost. The weather started to clear up, and it seemed like my stay at the village was about to end. I couldn't sleep that night, thinking of all the people who would have to abandon their homes or face starvation. And then, something incredible happened that morning. The entire village woke up to see that one of their water channels had been covered by a carpet of shimmering flowers. These plants seemed to have a purifying effect, clearing up the water and immediately giving life to some of their withering crops. Apparently, the irrigation leader didn't give up after being turned into a goat. He kept bleating outside the tower with no pause until the spell ran out. Because of this, the wizard gained some begrudging respect for him, seemingly reminded of his old adventuring party. Then they worked together all night, coming up with a way to filter the water while optimizing the irrigation system. In the future, their combined effort would make the village flourish tenfold, making it a massive trading hub a century later. This method would actually be adopted and refined by many other communities along the farthest route, bringing about an agricultural revolution in this region. At the same time, though, I already knew they were going to be fine. Arthox and I left the village without any fanfare, letting them celebrate on their own. Arthox had no clue as to what was going on. I went on to explain everything that happened, and he could only chuckle and say, "Makes sense." I squinted. "Really?" "Humans invented systems that use natural law to their advantages, whereas magic is about imposing your will on the universe and changing it. This difference in worldview was bound to cause friction." "So they're opposites?" Arthox frowned, visibly annoyed. "But what? You taught these people a lesson you didn't actually understand yourself." "Which is?" Arthox sighed. "On the surface, yes, they're opposites, but both methods strive towards the same thing. After witnessing the value of human cooperation, can you really call it anything other than magical?" This conversation had stuck with me for centuries. It's the most terrifying aspect of human ingenuity. No individual could have solved the problem on their own. It required relying on others and trusting them to do the same, which is a far bigger risk than most are willing to take. In comparison to this, slaying a monster just feels quaint. End of story. Story number 2. The humans had a saying, "Death is only the beginning," written by firefighter Raven. It has only been 6 months since the Votal announced its arrival with a rain of fire from the heavens. Cities vanished into explosive clouds of dust and fire. Billions died before they could even scream. They arrived so fast, many warnings came too late. EMP weapons knocked out all but the most hardened electronic devices, leaving our best defense measures useless. The world capitals went first: Washington, D.C., Moscow, Beijing, Tehran, New Delhi, all of the EU. And the list goes on. Any country with the ability to organize sufficient defense against them. Military bases, big and small, were annihilated. And then the invasion ships landed and spewed out their cargo of troops. Alien armor ignored all but the heaviest weapons. Enemy energy weapons sliced through steel and concrete like it was paper. Despite this incredible acts of courage, heroism, and refusal to give up, Earth's soldiers fought and died where they stood. They didn't go all the invaders' way, but their casualties were negligible against the size of their armies. Within days, organized resistance collapsed, with only isolated units left for the invaders to mop up. Within a week, Earth's population went from billions to millions. The grey horse whickered at its rider, as if saying to pay attention. The man forced the memories down and looked around, seeing nothing but blasted ground covered in craters, burnt buildings, and vegetation. And bones. Bones everywhere. Humans and animals were scorched, while others were just body-shaped ash. His destination was in sight, but still miles away. Chuckling to himself as he remembered how quickly a car or helicopter could make the trip. Once again, his mind wandered to the past. He remembered the men from his unit, his fellow Marines, and his friends. But try as he might, he can't remember his own name. The horse whickered again, as if saying he didn't need to know his name. His thoughts flickered back to the first time he rode a horse. With all their other equipment destroyed, his unit commandeered the horses to move faster. The wreckage of a farmstead said the owners wouldn't care anyway. He remembered celebrating a victory over a small patrol of invaders. There were so few times they got to celebrate that feat. He looked up and was surprised by how far he had come. He knew it was almost time, no matter how hard he tried, but his destination was a mystery. He swore the damn horse laughed at him. The horse began to climb the hill before them, and the man was surprised that he didn't fall off. He could see the shapes of other men on that same hill, all on horses. He hoped that they were from his unit. As he crested the hill, he got a better view of them. He thought he knew them, but not from where. He approached the others, and the horses greeted each other. As they met in the middle, the man on the white horse spoke. "It's time." As if that was a signal, another memory surfaced. Sounds of weapons firing and shouting, the feel of his saw bucking with recoil, and the sound made by alien weapons. He watched his friends die until he was the last one standing, then felt a bolt of white-hot pain in his chest. He looked down to see a big hole in his armor. He wanted to scream, but his lungs were burned to ash. He suddenly felt incredibly cold. A voice in his head cried out, "Come!" He looked up, and the other 3 riders were transformed. The rider to his left sat upon a black horse with scale in one hand. The rider across from him sat on a red horse with a large sword hung on the saddle. The last rider sat upon a white horse decked in shining armor, a crown on his head and a bow in his hand. He turned towards him. "We've been waiting for you." A strange feeling covered his body, and he looked down to see that he was in a black robe, all the flesh and muscle stripped from his arm. He looked down, and his horse was pale. The other rider spoke again. "We couldn't start without you, Death." Everything came rushing back to him, his death. Waking in a place both bright and dark at the same time. The spectral being was making him an offer, a chance to trade his soul for revenge. The surge of anger as he agreed, and then mounted on the horse. The rider astride the red horse drew his massive sword with a war cry, and the man, Death, found himself holding a wicked-looking scythe. He looked behind him and saw legions of the slain, standing still and awaiting orders. The being on the white horse spoke. "Humanity is gone! The invaders killed them all." He looked at the others and said, "Revenge is all that is left. Show no mercy." The 4 horsemen charged down the hill, the legions of the Dam following behind. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.